Welcome to the .NET PowerPoint Library tutorial. In this video, I'll show you how to create a workflow diagram using shapes in PowerPoint with the Syncfusion .NET PowerPoint Library. This includes how to add, format, and group shapes in PowerPoint. First, I will open an existing ASP.NET Core application, where I've already installed the Syncfusion .NET PowerPoint Library. If you want to know how to get started with the Syncfusion PowerPoint Library, check out the video link in the card above or the description below. Let me show you how to add shapes to a PowerPoint slide to create a simple workflow diagram by clicking this button. First, I open the index.cs HTML file, remove the existing code, and add an Add Shapes button. Next, I move to the Home Controller class and import the presentation package for this example. I define an action method, add shapes, with the return type action result. Inside this method, I start by creating a new PowerPoint presentation instance and adding a blank slide to it using the add method. Then, I get the shapes collection from the slide, which allows adding visual elements. To insert the first shape, I define a helper method called addRoundedRectangle. Inside it, I add a rounded rectangle at the specified position and size. Insert the given text, and format it by centering the text, making it bold, setting the font color to white, and adjusting the font size. The method then returns the created shape. In the Add Shapes method, I call this helper to add a rounded rectangle with the text requirement. Right below it, I insert a downward arrow to connect the stages, using the Add Shape method visually. I follow the same approach to add 3 more stages: design and execution, testing, and release. For each of these, I update the text content and adjust the vertical positions of the rectangles and arrows to maintain a clean visual flow. I define another helper method called createFileResult. In this method, I create a memory stream, save the modified presentation into it, reset the stream position to beginning, and return the file for download. Lastly, I call the createFileResult method, passing the presentation and the output file name. I save and run the application. When I click the Add Shapes button, the PowerPoint file is downloaded. When I open it, you'll see a clean vertical flowchart made up of rounded rectangles and arrows. Next, I will show you how to format the shapes with different colors. First, I add a Format Shapes button and define the action method with the return type action result. Inside this method, I begin by creating a new PowerPoint presentation using presentation.create method. Next, I add a blank slide to the presentation using the add method. Once a slide is created, I retrieve the shapes collection from it, which allows adding visual elements. I then add and format the shapes, starting with the requirement phase. I use the addRoundedRectangle helper method to add a rounded rectangle by specifying its position, size, and the display text. Next, I define the formatRoundedRectangle helper method. Inside it, I set the fill color and configure the line format with fill type, color, and thickness. After defining this method, I call it and apply a blue fill color to the requirement rectangle. Right below this rectangle, I add a downward arrow to visually connect the requirement stage with the next one, design and execution. To style the arrow, I define the format down arrow helper method. I set the fill color and configure the line format with fill type, color, and thickness. I then call this method to format the arrow accordingly. Next, I move to the design and execution phase and repeat the same steps. I change the position, text, and color of the rectangle, and adjust the arrow's position. For the testing phase, I do the same. Finally, for the release phase, I reuse the code to create the rounded rectangle, modifying its position, text, and color accordingly. Once all the shapes are added and formatted, I call the createFileResult method to return the presentation file for download. When I click the Format Shapes button, the presentation file is downloaded. I open the file, and you will see a workflow diagram with 4 stages. Each stage is represented by a different colored rounded rectangle, and the stages are connected with downward arrows, forming a clean vertical flowchart. Lastly, I'll show you how to create a presentation with a workflow diagram using a group shape. First, I add a Group Shapes button and define the action method with the return type. Inside this method, I reuse the same code from the Format Shapes method with a few minor changes. Instead of adding shapes directly to the slide, I create a container for the group using the Add Group Shape method. Then, I retrieve the shape collection from this group, so all added shapes become part of it. I update the file name in the return statement. When I click the button, the file is downloaded. As you can see, all shapes are grouped together, allowing easy movement, or resizing as a single unit. That's a wrap. I have shown you how to create a workflow diagram using shapes in PowerPoint with the Syncfusion .NET PowerPoint Library. You can download a working example from the GitHub link in the description below. I have also shared a link where you can learn about obtaining a free license key to use our file format libraries through our community license. If you found this video helpful, like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.